afternoon to everyone. Blessed afternoon to Anand, Azmi, Chloe, Betty, Kalpana, Marilyn, Yasmani. Blessed afternoon to everybody. So, first and foremost, I will take this opportunity to say thank you very much for joining us in this session. Now, we have a very interesting topic. It is called Next Level Trainers, three actions to get reinvited. Now, my first question, are you guys excited to journey with us in this very meaningful session? Now, if you feel that you're very excited, please hit a reaction button. All right. Since since everybody is excited, very excited in this Friday afternoon, and we are going to begin with the first speaker. Now, Michael Xavier shall be the first speaker, and he is going to be journeying with all of you all in a very interesting topic called Master Customized Facilitation. Right, guys? Now, throughout this 1.5 hours journey, I would love you all to take your notes and your pen to take down some very important notes. Okay, so I'm going to invite Michael. Michael's ready, and Michael's going to be sharing the strategy and a technique on how we are going to be re-invited again to run training programs. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Christopher, and a very warm welcome, everybody. My name is Michael Xavier, and I'm very excited to be with you this afternoon. And I want to also take this opportunity to thank my team, Molly, Yashini, Christopher, Sarah, and thank you for making this session possible for Zahira and myself. And so, my dear friends, as Christopher has promised you today, we are going to go straight into business. And here we have myself, Michael Xavier, together with Gurmit and Zahira, who's going to share with you our Speak Right experience, our Speak Right recipe as to what has caused us to have such regular business from our client and to achieve over a 60% re-invitation rate with an average evaluation of 4.8 throughout the year 2024 and the years before that. And many people ask us, how is it that we do it? Number one, we ensure that each session that we undertake is going to bring great value to our participants and to ensure that the clients who have trusted us with the projects will leave feeling that they have learned so much. And more importantly, they establish what is known as behavior change at their workplace. I'm very eager to find out from all of you as to why did you sign up for this complimentary session. Maybe you fall into different categories. Some of you may be employed, and you're probably wondering, how would I be as a trainer if I were to take on the role of a trainer? Maybe part-time. Some of you may have been working for many years, and now you think that you're ready to take your wonderful experiences and give it over to participants from the younger generations. And perhaps that's what you're thinking. But more importantly, dear friends, some of you may be encountering a situation where you're already a trainer, but you catch yourself not being re-invited. That's the first category. Or you call yourself a trainer, but you catch yourself doing programs at very low level, and you're not able to do programs for higher level people such as managers, directors, vice presidents, and above, a category of audience that we regularly train. So we are here today to ensure that you walk away with a solution. We want you to ensure that when we teach you this today, you take it seriously and you implement it into your workplace, implement it in your training session, and see how it's going to transform the entire learning experience. So in my talk, Mastering Customized Facilitation, you're going to discover a revolutionary method to facilitate according to the needs of your learners and mesmerize them in the process. We have got close to 10,000 accredited trainers in Malaysia, and many of them are very good. But I also want you to know, dear friends, quite a number of these trainers are doing a rather poor job in the industry. Some of them are afraid to be evaluated because most often they are probably not going to be reinvited because of poor quality training that they may be facilitating. But we are not here to judge. We are here to solve that problem. I'm going to get straight into this part of the learning and to help you discover the critical elements of mastering customized facilitation. Customized facilitation. I would like to begin by sharing with you an experience that I had just yesterday. I was asked to conduct a 2 days program for a group of finance leaders of a multinational company. And before we actually conducted that session, we actually had a meeting with the chief financial officer who highlighted to us what were the concerns that he was having with his finance leaders. And after hearing it, and because I don't come from a finance background, I made it a point to find out what is actually happening in that finance industry involving a manufacturing organization. And being in an organization that is very much in a semiconductor environment where they are constantly dealing with a very cyclical business environment, very tumultuous. There are many changes, price wars, competitors. It's quite obvious to notice that in this semiconductor industry, that finance people will be put under a lot of stress. Now, in dealing with so many issues such as foreign exchange issues, material shortage issues, pricing issues, finance people are also required to communicate with people below them, which is their employee. So what I did was, after attending that meeting, made it a point to investigate a little bit about the industry, to deep dive on that sector. I want to ask you, dear friends, when you have been given a training session to be done, do you take the effort to read up about that industry, to find out about that sector? What are the challenges that they're going through? What are the issues that they're facing? And then you'll come to discover there's just so many things that you're going to teach that may contradict the kind of sector that they come from. So, under the circumstances, what I did was I looked very carefully on the concepts that I was going to teach, and I related it to the sector, related it to the concerns that the CFO has highlighted. And then I realized there are many things that I need to simplify. Then I realized there's some things that are a little bit more complex that I had assumed it to be. For an example, when a typical finance person is going to be talking to operations people are very demanding and they want to make sure that they're able to achieve the shipment for the customer. And therefore, when they go into an operations meeting and highlight certain discrepancies to the operations people, the operations people would push back. They will say, "What do you know in finance? You are always calling out on discrepancy issues." So I could talk about conflict resolution, but without understanding the sector, without understanding the stress points and the pain points the industry is going through, I would sound like the 9,999 other trainers out there who do not customize for the needs of their audience. And which is why this particular client gives me close to 10 days of training every single month for the last 4 years. How do you explain that? And I'm not only teaching just the finance people, I'm teaching people from all sectors within that organization. So it's very important for us to be able to customize it and to be able to tailor make the program according to the needs of those people who are attending your session. So as I'm teaching you this, as I'm highlighting this to you, my dear friends, and if you are coming from a trainer background, I'm sure some of you are practicing it, but perhaps some of you may be hearing it for the first time. And if you're hearing it for the first time, I would strongly urge you to use the time that you have in preparation of your content to look at the industry sector issues. The second very important point I want to highlight is that as a facilitator, we must also be intuitive. Now, what if I tell you that in the meeting with your clients, They don't necessarily tell you everything that is happening. They would only tell you what they know. I give you an example. In this particular case, an employee was having an issue about communicating with his superior. And when I talked to the superior about it, he says that this employee is afraid of giving feedback because he's afraid of ridicule from the people around him. And that's the feedback that the manager gave me. But if I'm just going to assume that that is actually the truth and that's the only thing that is happening, I would be part of the other group of trainers who do not customize the content for their participants. But instead, what I thought was maybe, maybe perhaps intuitively I felt there could be other reasons that could be contributing to the reason why this employee refuses to speak up in meetings and to give feedback. So I asked a pointed question during that meeting to that particular manager. Is it possible that this employee is afraid to give feedback because he feels that if he gives more feedback, he may end up doing more work? So, dear friends who are watching me speak on this, do you feel that could be relevant in a typical workspace? And if you agree with me, just type a yes in the chat room. That yes, Michael, somebody who sits in a meeting and doesn't give feedback is not necessarily giving it because he's afraid to speak, but he's probably afraid of taking on additional duties in a workplace. Coming into a semiconductor industry, the example I gave you just now, it is quite relevant that we cannot assume as facilitators that whatever that your customer tells you, whatever that your client tells you, that is the situation that's happening. If you are a facilitator with enormous experience, or you are a curious facilitator who likes to interview people from different backgrounds, you would be interested to know there could be other contributing reasons. So the intuitive approach that I discovered in that particular meeting, I added it into my program. And when I run that program eventually for the clients, they look at it and they say, Michael is speaking to me. He's actually talking to me, even though I'm not making eye contact to that person alone. But everybody feels as if I'm talking to them. Now, how is that possible? I've had some clients who have told me that, Michael, to be honest with you, we have tried other trainers. But after trying other trainers, we realize they do not customize. They do not understand our situation. They use the same slides, the same content, the same examples for all their clients. I tell you, I want to say thank you to all those trainers out there. Because of them, we have got much business coming to us because they are doing injustice to clients when they get paid and they do not customize according to the needs of the client. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a facilitator not because I earn good money from it, even though I run this company and I am a trainer myself. I do it for one precise reason, and that's the reasons I tell Zahira and Gurmeet and everybody in my team. We do it because we want to see behavior change take place in the organization, my dear friends. So let me ask you, are you are you an intuitive person? Are you an intuitive leader? In anything that you do in a workplace, do you go beyond what you hear? Do you bother to go a little deeper? Well, if you do that in a facilitation, my dear friends, I promise you, money back guarantee, you'll have nothing less than 10 to 20 days training every month because many persons out there do not do what we are recommending you to do. And the third part, my dear friends, is this area on the needs analysis concerns. Now, this is very critical. And it's very sad that unfortunately many organizations do not do their needs analysis correctly. I'm sure some of you would agree with me. Some HR people or training people will just go to the department and say, what training do you need? And they'll say, oh, I think I need communication skills training. Oh, I think I need negotiation skills. I think I need a training on root cause analysis. Well and good. But very often, I notice that when I come into training session, the people do not have a communication skills problem. But what they do have is they've got a lack in influencing skills, which is a little deeper than communication skills. A person can be a good speaker, but he's not able to influence people because he sounds like a con man. A con man can speak well, but not influence people. So at the end of the day, I've come to realize that as a trainer, when somebody asks me to do a training program and they claim that they've done a training needs analysis, I do not assume that that is cast in stone. What I do is I always keep an open-ended situation. What if there's an influencing issue? What if it's an emotions or anger management issues? What if it's an interpersonal issue? What if there is a personality issue that we need to deal with? I have to keep it open-ended. So let me ask you, for those of you who are conducting trainings already right now, are you a sardine can trainer where everything is canned and everything is planned and everything is prepared, and then when you go into the session, when people speak to you in a different frequency but you still remain in your own frequency? Guess what? You need to master the customized facilitation. Now some of you might ask, so Michael, are you telling me that every training that you go for, you make it a point to use examples, make some adjustments to your slides, come up with new case studies according to the needs of your students? And my answer is yes. This is precisely why, my dear friends, in Speak Right, we do not use freelance trainers, because freelance trainers do not have the time to customize it as much as they would love to for their participants, simply because they have got many sessions to run. But in our organization, we believe in justice. In our organization, we believe in behavior change. In our organization, we do not see training success as just a completion of training. We assess training success only if a manager comes up to me and tells me, Michael, I sent my manager for your presenting to influence training. After he attended your 2 days program, he came back and his presentation skills has improved 60% within 30 days. That, dear friends, is a needs analysis achieved. So, as a facilitator, we cannot assume that the training that you're going to do is targeted for the competency issues that you were told about. You must be ready to deal with different situations during the session and intuitively prepare for it and deal with those questions as they come along. So, again, do not consider needs analysis as cast in stone. And the last one, my dear friends, and I consider this the most important. And if you were to just follow what I'm asking you to do, of course, yes, you got to put a little bit of effort. Many people these days are having this minimalist mindset. Recently, a friend of mine shared with me a story of a facilitator who was given a task to do a 2 hour talk. And he told that particular client, oh, I've done this talk before. I just have to make some changes to the slides and I'll just do it. But then he was told that no, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to customize it according to our needs. And thank God my good friend had actually told him to customize. But unfortunately, when he went to do the 2 hours talk, it was a shoddy job, dear friends. While he was known to have given very good information, he was not able to customize it to the needs of the audience. And therefore, dear friends, one of the very important facilitation customization mode that you need to follow is learner derived concerns. Now, what is a learner derived concerns? A learner derived concerns, if a participant comes up to me and tells me, hey, Michael, I just want you to know that while we're talking about this topic on communication and leadership, I'm having struggle giving feedback to my superior. And this guy comes from a semiconductor industry, and he tells me that concern during the training session. Now, take a look at my slides. There is no content on how to talk to your superior, particularly in that particular general communication skills program. But because he's highlighted the concern to me, I make it a point to be able to give him some steps on how he could actually go up to his boss and give the boss some feedback. And so, under these circumstances, dear friends, I will give him step number one. Go up to your superior and thank him for the experiences that he's given. Step number two, highlight some of the things that is going on well in your organization. And step number three, you then highlight some of the concerns that you have. And step number four, ask for feedback from your superior. Now, was that 4 steps embedded into our content? Probably not, because I'm not a prophet who's able to know what's going to happen in the future and forecast it. But what I'm able to do is I'm able to take that feedback during the session and quickly devise a plan on how to actually deal with the situation should it arise in a session. I tell you this, my dear friends, in my observations of some trainers, they are very good at facilitating what they've prepared. When suddenly they're thrown a curveball, unfortunately, they are not able to answer that in a way that is relevant to the participant because they are a sardine canned facilitator. They've been doing this program for 1,000,000 years, and you ask me to suddenly customize according to your needs. Well, I can't do that. I struggle in that area. If that is your concern, my dear friends, I'm telling you, you have come into the right room. You have come into the right room. So, whatever you do, my dear friends, remember this: whether it's industry sector, intuitiveness, needs analysis, or learner derived concerns, relevance to the participants is very important. And number two, everything that you're teaching, is it applicable to a semiconductor industry? Is it applicable to a hospital industry? Is it applicable to a banking industry? You cannot tell a person who works in a hospital, sit down with a person, spend 30 minutes listening to that person's concern. Well, in a healthcare environment, a nurse doesn't have 30 minutes because there's an elderly patient who's having difficulty in breathing, and she needs to walk in there to check on him regularly. Is it applicable when you are able to devise it differently for semiconductor versus doing it for healthcare? Some facilitators do not know even that basic difference. So I'm going to tell you, if you want to be a facilitator that has got regular engagements, you're being reinvited until you've got no more dates, but people still want you. Your clients get addicted to you because they feel that no one can do it the way you do. You have come into the right room, because in part number 1, I'm teaching you master customized facilitation. But do you think it stops here? Certainly not, dear friends. In a short while, my good friend Gurmeet Singh, who I consider to be the master storyteller, he is going to teach you how you can bring your experiences or any other personal stories or any other sources to be a targeted storyteller. Such an exciting topic, and I promise you, you're going to learn much from him as well. So, my dear friends, I hope that you found this session helpful. Could you just key in 1 or 2 words in the chat room? What is the biggest takeaway that you've got from this part 1 of this session? I would love to hear from you. And once again, thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to hand over the session back to Christopher. Over to you, Christopher.
Thank you very much, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are taking down notes like what Michael said, the factor ketagihan in Bahasa Melayu or addiction, where with the 4 approach Michael just shared a moment, intuitive approach, industrial sector issues, need analysis, concerns, and learners' concerns, you'll be getting invitation over and over again. So I hope that you're taking down notes. And Gurmeet we are ready for our next speaker, Gurmeet, and I'm going to be inviting Gurmeet. Over to you, Gurmeet.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Michael's session so far. All right. I see that Sheena has a question. Right. So welcome to becoming a targeted storyteller. I'm going to start things off by asking you a very important question. All right. The question is this: as a trainer, as a facilitator, would you agree that stories are important during your sessions? Can you please type a yes if you agree, type no if you don't. All right, I can see a lot of yes, a lot of great replies. Everyone is saying yes, and I see Zarina saying yes, definitely. All right, wonderful. Okay, so I agree that, it is very important as a trainer, as a speaker, as a facilitator, as a coach to bring in stories during your session. So for this part 2 of becoming a targeted storyteller, my aim is to point out the key ingredients to become a targeted storyteller and to share one common pitfall, common mistake that many trainers make when telling stories. All right, so let's start with a mistake very quickly. I want you to think of the last story that you heard from a trainer. What do you feel are some of the common mistakes that trainers tend to make when telling stories? Can you just put it in the chat box? What are some mistakes that you feel trainers make when trying to tell stories during their session? Just put it in the chat box. Not relatable, Rosia said. Too focused on themselves. All right. Too self-centered. Boring cliche jokes, yeah. known story, quite popular, not relatable. Sometimes stories are not related to the participants, hence lack of attention. Sometimes I feel I'm blowing my own trumpet, irrelevant or too formal. All right, wonderful replies, keep them coming. Okay, now, here's the biggest mistake in my opinion, based on what Michael shared earlier, about customizing your content, linking your content to the learner's needs. The biggest mistake that trainers, speakers, and facilitators make when it comes to storytelling is lack of linkage to the workplace. And that is to highlight once again what Michael had mentioned, the importance of customization. All right, so what type of stories should I tell? What stories should I focus on? What are the appropriate stories that I need to link to the workplace? So let me share with you 4 different types of stories. And then I'm going to be sharing with you an example of how to tell a story. Okay, so let's start. All right, the first story is, of course, your personal story. All right, your personal stories, your struggles, your challenges, your shortcomings, and even your successes. All right. But like what most of you had correctly pointed out, the stories cannot be seen as something that is blowing your own trumpet. At the same time, it needs to have learning. And more importantly, based on what Michael had shared earlier, it needs to be customized and linked towards the needs of the participants. But let me ask you this question, a very important question. Let's just say your personal story is a story that is not linked with the industry that the participants come from. Should you tell that story? What do you think? Type yes if you feel you should. Type no if you feel you don't. If your story, your personal story, is not coming from the place or from the industry which your participants are from, should you tell that story? All right, good question, Sheena. Okay, I'll come back to it. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Okay, Rosia said yes. So let me give you an example of this. The answer is yes before that. You can tell yes as long as you're able to strongly link it back to the training and the participants. Exactly, Nor Azrina. Right? Recently, I ran a session, a training session for a bunch of nurses from quite a large hospital in the northern state of Malaysia called Penang. And I shared a story from my background, which was education. Right? I was sharing a story about a difficult manager that I had encountered and how I spoke to that person. Now, once the story was done, I asked them a very important question. Do you face difficult doctors? Do you have difficult managers? Do you have difficult patients? Do you have difficult colleagues? Tell me, how do you speak with them? How do you communicate with them? How do you respond to them? Right? So like what Nor Azrina had mentioned, yes, it needs to, you can tell your own story, but it needs to link back to the training, the participants, and their industry. Right. Now, for Sheena's message, how do I know to draw the line between blowing my own trumpet and being relevant? Ask yourself this when you're telling the story. Is the purpose of the story to help the participants, or is the purpose of the story to make you look better? All right. So I always come from the mindset of this story is designed to help my participants. All right. So let's move to the second one, other people's story. So we can share stories from our relatives, other people that we know, all right, or even famous people's stories. Okay, now, very important question. How about this? Hypothetical stories. Can we share that? Meaning the stories are made up, basically. What do you think? Yes or no? Type yes if you feel yes, no if you feel no. All right, a lot of yeses coming in. Okay, Sarah, Betty, but make it real. Yes, as far as possible, we try to tell real stories, right? but hypothetical stories, hypothetical scenarios are also important. They often start with, let's just say, imagine if you had blah, blah, blah situation at the workplace and this happened, what would you do? All right. So those are hypothetical stories. Now, we have the personal, others, and hypothetical stories, but there is, yes, exactly, significant. Now, there is a fourth story that a lot of trainers miss out on using. The participant story. So let me share with you an example, right? Recently, a few days ago, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I was in the southern state of Malaysia called Melaka. I was running a session for a very large car maker, right? And during lunch, I had this participant who shared a very interesting story related to the struggles, trials, and tribulations that he goes through at the workplace. And I asked him during the session, hey, Azmin, if you don't mind, can I share that story during the session? All right. So I took that story, I shared the story, and I asked the rest of the participants, what did you learn from that? So what I'm trying to share here, my friends, is yes, we have our personal stories. Yes, we have other people's stories. Yes, we sometimes make up hypothetical stories, but some of the most powerful stories are the participants' own stories. All right. Now, having said that, let me share a story. And at the end of the story, I want you to pay attention as I'm going through the story. I want you to tell me, what did I do during this storytelling? All right. So the scenario is this. You are going to be my participants. You come from the semiconductor manufacturing industry. All right. My friends, and the topic that we are trying to share is conflict in conversations, managing conflict in conversations. All right, my friends, I would like to share with you one incident that my friend Rajesh had encountered. He had encountered a very stressful situation with a demanding boss. Let me ask you all this question. Have you ever had a demanding boss before? Or have you ever met a demanding boss before? Can you type a yes if you have? No if you have not. All right, Betty said yes. Rosia said yes. Okay, yes and no. Okay. Yes from Saravanan, yes from Yash as well. Thank you so much. All right. So this demanding boss of my uncle Rajesh had called him into the office. And the demanding boss told my uncle Rajesh this. Rajesh, I want you to change the systems from type A to type B, all right, for our microconductors. Use the type B when you're customizing it for our clients. Now, Rajesh had a few concerns about the type B, but as he tried to speak out, he said, sir, if you don't mind, can I share my thoughts? Immediately, the boss said, Rajesh, do not question my decisions. Just do what I tell you to do. My friends, if you were Rajesh at that point of time, would you, A, shut up and do what your boss tells you? Or B, try to gently push back? What do you think? If you were Rajesh, what would you do? Can you type A if you will just do the job? B if you will gently push back? All right, Rosia said A. Norman said B. What about the rest? What do you think? Okay, A as well. All right, so Rajesh took the approach of pushing back gently. Yeah, gently try to slip in my idea. Very good suggestion, Sheena. All right, so Rajesh gently tried to push back. He said, sir, if you don't mind me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you don't mind me saying, we have used type B before last year, and there have been many mistakes and errors that were made that had delayed shipment for our customers. So I'm a little bit concerned with regards to using type B again this year. The boss exploded. He looks at Rajesh and he says, Rajesh, are you questioning what I'm saying? Are you the boss or am I the boss? Do what I say. Now, friends, let me ask you this question. At that point of time, if you were Rajesh, would you shut up and do your work? Would you keep quiet and not push back? The boss is too demanding. Yeah. All right. Now, what Rajesh did, no, try to reason exactly, right? Okay, so what Rajesh did is basically, he pushed back gently. He mentioned to the boss, sir, if you don't mind, I have a suggestion. Let's try using type B for 1 week. We will relook at the plan. Let's see if there are any delays of shipments. Are there any complaints? Are there any errors? All right. In terms of the when we are using type B. And then can we relook at this of exploring a different option later on after a week? What do you think, sir? All right. And guess what? The manager agreed. All right. So the point that I'm trying to make, my friends, is number one, when it comes to conflict in communication, number one, do not get emotional. Rajesh did not get emotional. Number two, do not interrupt someone when they are speaking. Rajesh allowed the boss to finish before speaking. Number three, when you're gently pushing back, push back with facts, data, and figures, which is what Rajesh did. All right? So, in a nutshell, remember, when you are communicating, especially when it is a conflict situation and you're meeting a difficult person, all right, remember to always remain calm, get the facts, figures, and data. So with that note, that's the end of the story. All right. So question, what did you learn from what I did when I was telling that story? What are some of the things that you feel I did well? Can you just type out in the chat box? Don't go on head-on collision. All right, so that's part of the story. But what did you learn from how I delivered the story? All right, asking the participants for relevancy. Yes, you're connecting back as you're telling the story. You're not just telling the story to show how great you are. You're trying to make it relevant for the participants by incorporating asking them questions, getting them to imagine themselves in the story. All right. What else? Rosia said storytelling. Okay. Okay. Engaging them. All right. Very important as well. Okay. Getting the participants involved, networking. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, I just want to before I end the session and share with you what are the 2 ingredients that are most important to become a targeted storyteller. I just want to once again reiterate these 4, which are personal, others, hypothetical, and participant story. Now, some of you might be wondering, right? Why would one choose another person's story rather than my own story? Now, it could be several reasons. Number one, our life experience in that area could be a little bit lacking. Number two, it could be that, for example, my uncle Rajesh comes from the industry that the participants are from, and it's more relatable. All right? So do take note, there is nothing wrong with regards to taking someone else's story and telling that story from their perspective. So that is one of the reasons, if let's say you had that question, why should I tell someone else's story? That could be one important reason. Now, earlier I spoke about the hypothetical stories, right? And you might think, oh, Gurmeet, but I like to keep my stories real, honest, all right, raw, okay? But sometimes it is also important to come up with hypothetical situations so that people, and most importantly, the participants can see the bigger picture, right? So do take note, these are the 4 stories. I am not saying that one is more important than the other. All 4 of them have their uses. Now, at the end of the day, if you notice when I was telling my story, I did 2 things. Number 1, I made a point, meaning a learning at the end of the story. And number 2, I linked it to the learner. How did I do so? I told a story that is related to their industry. I asked them to, be involved into the story, all right? And number 3, I made sure that I linked it to the learning and the session that they need to learn, all right? So let me end, before I end, I just want to mention once again, with regards to participants' stories, when you tell their stories, you make them feel like their stories that they shared with you are relevant, valid, recognized, and important, right? So once again, to end this part 2 of becoming a targeted storyteller, remember when you're telling stories, make a point, and the point has to be related to the session that you are, you're conducting. And number 2, link it to the learner and link it to their industry. So now you have heard about customization for Michael. You have heard from me about becoming a targeted storyteller. The next session in part 3, which my colleague Zahira Ali will be sharing, is where we take our stories, we take our content to the next level with voice modulation. So with that note, I would like to pass the session back to Christopher. Thank you so much for listening to me in part 2. Back to you, Christopher.
Thank you very much, Gurmeet. I personally find that storytelling in training session, it is very powerful because it connects the participant at a very, very emotional level. Thus, it brings a stronger relationship during the training program. So thank you very much, Gurmeet. It's a very interesting insight where you brought us in the importance of connecting the story to help your participant. Now, our next trainer, Zaira Ali, it is ready, and she is going to be sharing the voice modulation. Over to you, Zaira Ali.
All right. Thank you so much, Christopher, for the introduction. Now, my dear friends, Michael has shared with all of us just now about the importance of customizing your facilitation. Then Gurmeet went into storytelling. Now, in my part, I'll be sharing with all of you how you can keep your learners engaged and tuned in through your voice. Now, my dear friends, I'm going to start with this question for all of you, and I want you to write down your answers in the chat box. If you were given a guitar, what would you do with the guitar? Can you type down in the chat box? If you were to get a guitar, what would you do with it? Strum, Norman. Try to learn and play it. Christopher, Gurmeet, Raja says, strum with a song. Mitran says, learn how to play before play it. Thank you very much. Saravanan says, test the strings. Thank you very much. Now, when we get a guitar, we don't use it. We don't use the guitar. Now, if you were to use the guitar, what would happen is you would just pick the strings, you would strum it, and it would make sounds like ding, 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 ding. But what do we do with the guitar, my dear friends? When we get a guitar, we play with the guitar. Why do we play with it? Because we want to create meaningful sound out of the guitar. So, my dear friends, when it comes to training and communication, likewise, We don't use our voice. Imagine if I were to use my voice as I conduct the training. Let's say a sentence like this, and I just use my voice. I would be saying, have you ever had to give feedback to someone who refuses to listen, especially someone with authority over you? Imagine this. Now, if I were to use my voice as a trainer, that is how I would sound like. Now, I'm going to ask you, my dear friends, if I, as a trainer, were to speak to you in this way, would you even feel invited to imagine? When I ask you to imagine, type in the chat box. Would you feel invited to imagine when I ask you to imagine? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't feel invited to imagine. So, my dear friends, everyone can speak, but only a few can engage their listeners. So instead of using your voice to engage and speak with your trainees, with your participants, we're going to see how we can play with our voice so that when we communicate, we train them in this session, they are engaged, tune in, and they are attracted to the content and stories that we deliver. So I'm going to begin to share with all of you the first ingredient that you can use to play with your voice in your training to engage your learners. And the first one is your pace. And when I talk about pace, I'm talking about being fast and slow. And let me introduce to you a technique known as hypnotic drop. In a training, you need to adjust your pace when you are trying to make an important point. My dear friends, do you agree with me on this? When you are trying to make an important point, do you need to adjust your pace? Type yes or type no in the chat box. Yes or no? Mitra says yes. Rosa says yes. Yuki, Shanti, Betty. All right. Thank you so much. Yes, you need to adjust your pace. Now, what is hypnotic drop? What is hypnotic drop? Hypnotic drop is when you slow down only at a few words, like what I'm doing right now. Now, why do you have hypnotic drop? To create focus. And when do we want to create focus? Can anyone guess? Can you type in the chat box, when do we want to create focus in our lesson? When do we want to create focus in our lesson? Mitran says when we come to important points. Rosia says important point. Anyone else? For imagination, Parashina is interesting. Driving home a point when we want to attract attention. Thank you very much. Your answers are correct. It is also used when you want to impart learning to your audience. So when you want to get your audience to focus and to remember an important point, do not rush through it. Now, let me show you one example. Listen to this. The more you practice, the more you will discover. There is no focus in the sentence. Your learners wouldn't know which is the part that they need to focus on, what is there for them to learn. But instead of reading that way, let me show you how you can impart hypnotic drop. Now, as I do this, I want you to practice yourself. You can mute, you can unmute yourself, okay? Now, this is how you can impart hypnotic drop by adjusting your pace. The more you practice, the more you will discover. So what have I done over there is, when I am about to reach the end of my sentence, at the three final words, I drag the words, I drag them, I slow down, and I pause. Listen one more time. The more you practice, the more you will discover. Pause. So, my dear friends, this is the first thing that you can do to impart learning in your learners. Do not go fast when you are making an important point. Now, let's move on to the second ingredient on how you can engage your learners, whether it is through your stories or through your content. Power. Now, when I speak of power, I'm talking about volume adjustment. Now, let's watch this sentence, hear it. This is the most important concept you will need to remember. Now, if you look at this sentence, when I speak in this way to my learners, the word most important loses its meaning and power. Do you agree with me on that? Listen one more time. This is the most important concept you will need to remember. Look at the word most important. Do you think when I speak that way to my learners, the words most important loses its power and meaning? Rosa, you're right. You're being monotone over there. It loses its power. It is supposed to be powerful because I'm saying most important. So if I were to speak in that way, it loses its power. So how do I add in power to most important? I increase the volume at most important. This is how I do it. This is the most important concept you will need to remember. And look at how when I raise my volume slightly, my dear friends, don't overdo it, slightly. When I raise my volume slightly on most important, see how it gets clarity. It gives clarity to the words most important and it gives power to it. But that's not all, my dear friends. Adding power is not only about increasing the volume, but don't forget, you can also decrease the volume to add power. So is adding power only about increasing volume? The answer is no. Now let's look at this sentence over here. My point here is that I want to make the two words over here, imagine this, powerful, and I want to get my learners to focus and pay attention to what I'm about to share with them. So this is how I can do it. Have you ever had to give feedback to someone who refuses to listen, especially someone with authority over you? Imagine this. So I bring down my volume a little bit to add in power right before I go into my story. So my dear friends, can you type down in the chat box, what are the two things that you have learned up to this point on how we can play with our voice to engage our learners? Type them down into the chat box. What are the two things that you have learned up to this point on how we can play with our voice to engage our learners? Pace, volume, adjustment, hypnotic. That is right. So my dear friends, you can see over here, when we increase the volume, it helps to gain clarity. But when we reduce the volume, the sudden change in the speaking pattern, my dear friends, the sudden change in the speaking pattern somehow triggers our learner's brain to focus on the change. So the change in the pattern that happens would get them to focus on what you have got to say over there. So instead of speaking with a loud or with a high volume all the time, when you reduce the volume, it creates intimacy, or in some situation, it somehow grabs the audience's attention to make them curious. What is it that you have got to share after that? Now, my dear friends, let's go to the third ingredient. That's right, Betty Poa, hypnotic drop, increase the power or increase the volume to add on power. Parashina says variation in tone, volume, and pace to make a point. Xiaoqi says pace and volume, which is the hypnotic drop and volume. Norma says volume and hypnotic drop. Okay, now the third ingredient over here is the pitch. Now, if we were to look at pitch, there are many ways to look at it. High pitch, low pitch, and there are a few uses of it. But what am I going to share with you right now is how you can play with your pitch, especially when you are reaching the end of your sentence. Now look at this sentence. Here, how I'm going to speak it out. as a trainer. Okay, just imagine this. This strategy will help you improve your results significantly. One more time. This strategy will help you improve your results significantly. If you listen very carefully, when I ended my sentence at significantly, I ended with a high pitch. Now, when we end with a high pitch, it sounds like you're asking a question. When it sounds like you're asking a question as a trainer, it would make you sound unsure and as if you're seeking validation from your learners. So instead of ending your sentence with a high pitch, which makes you sound like you are unsure, this is how you can end your sentence with a lower pitch. Now listen to this. This strategy will help you improve your results significantly. One more time. This strategy will help you improve your results significantly. So with a lower pitch, it makes your point, it makes your sentence over here, it makes you end your sentence with more certainty. So what does it do to you as a trainer? Now, my dear friends, remember this. Being a trainer, when you are conveying a message to your learners, it is important for you to sound that you know what you're talking about and you are delivering it with certainty. So when you are sure with what you're delivering, trust me, it would help to gain the learner's confidence as well. Right? That is right. Norman, use high-pitched on improve. Betty says, I would stress on strategy and significantly. Betty, that is right. However, when it comes to the end of the sentence, significantly is at the end over here. So when we end our sentence with the word significantly, instead of ending it with a high pitch, end it with a lower pitch to convey certainty and surety through your voice. And now, let's go to the final ingredient. The final ingredient over here, can anyone guess what would be the final ingredient? Can anyone guess what would be the final ingredient on how we can play with our voice so that we could engage our learners? Raza says punchline, that is interesting. Pauses? Gurmeet? Anyone else? At a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Xiaoqi says tone. Betty says pause. Norman says avoid the filler word. I do agree with you on that, Norman. Okay. Now, the final one over here is pause. But I'm not speaking about any typical pauses, my dear friends. I'm talking about strategic pauses. Now, our pause is very important. Now, we know that pauses are important, but why? When it comes to training, as a trainer, it is very, very important to allow our trainers to reflect on what we say. And part of our learning is to get them to reflect, to ponder, to get the ideas sink into their mind for them to make sense. So if we keep speaking, we're not allowing them the chance to reflect, to make sense, to get the idea to sink into their mind. So my dear friends, pauses are very important. Now, there are 2 types of pauses. I'm going to show to all of you. Now, if you still remember, when Gurmeet shared the story about Rajesh and also his boss, Gurmeet included some dialogues in it. So if Gurmeet or any other trainers were to include any dialogues in the story, and Gurmeet or any trainers just speak it out without pausing, your learners would not be able to capture that there is a dialogue, number 1. Okay, so what can we do over here is to add a short pause when there is a dialogue. Let me read this out. Rajesh nodded, relief, and said, got it, sir. Thank you for giving me the chance to test this out. Short pause. Now, short pause would be sufficient for you to tell your learners that, hey, there is a dialogue. Now, this is different than the rest of my content. Now, in the second part, this is where you want your learners to reflect on your message. You want the message to sink into them and for them to make sense. So now listen to the sentence. By staying calm, presenting data, and offering a solution, Rogers had managed to navigate a tough conversation with an aggressive boss. Not only did he protect the team from a hasty decision, but he also maintained his manager's respect by focusing on collaboration instead of confrontation. Now, make that pause longer. Why do we make that pause longer? Can anyone type into the chat box? Why do we make that pause at the word confrontation longer compared to the dialogue? Why do we want to make that longer? Please type down in the chat box. Betty says to allow the word to sink into the listener's mind. Rosa says to get the message to sink in, creates emphasis, Mitran, for them to reflect. Very good. So what do we want them to reflect? We want them to reflect on this part, my dear friends. He also maintained his manager's respect by focusing on collaboration instead on confrontation. So that is where we want our learners to reflect. So this is where we add the longer pause. And my dear friends, let me tell you one thing that I do. When I pause longer, I don't just pause. I pause while establishing eye contact with my listeners. Now imagine if I have got a room of my learners, my listeners in it, I would ensure that I look at them from left to right, right to left. And that is how long I pause and look at them. Why? Why do I pause longer and look at them? Because I want to make sure that they know they're getting the attention from me. And I want to make sure that they are always engaged in the content and the story that I'm telling them. So eye contact connects with your audience. And as you pause, it also allows us to engage better with our learners. So my dear friends, with this, I've shared with all of you the 4 ingredients that you can add that allows you to play with your voice in your training. Number 1 is to adjust your pace, whereby if you include hypnotic drop, you get your learners to focus on the learning that you want to impart. Remember, do not speak fast all the time. When it comes to an important point, slow down with a hypnotic drop. Drag the words and pause. Number 2, adding power by increasing your volume or at times decreasing your volume would also create emphasis. Number 3, your pitch. How do you end your pitch for some sentences? Now, when you want to convey certainty, you want to gain your learners' confidence in your content, you might want to end your sentence with a lower pitch compared to a higher pitch. And finally, are the pauses. Ensure that you have strategic pauses. They can be long pause or short pauses, and it depends on the purpose. Long pauses are when you want to get your audience to be engaged, when you want to get your audience to reflect on the learning. And remember, look at them at the same time to connect with them as they are reflecting on your learning. And short pauses are more suitable when you have dialogues in between. So by including these 4 ingredients, you are adding variety in your session. And at least from 9 to 5 p.m., you're not killing your audience with having a monotone when you speak to them. Variety engages them. And importantly, you are engaging their emotions with your story and also with your voice. So my dear friends, play with your voice as you customize your facilitation and as you share with them the stories so that it would keep them engaged right from the beginning till the end of our session. Now with that, I pass over to Christopher for the closing. Christopher, over to you.
Thank you very much, Zahira. my dearest participant, ladies and gentlemen, did we learn something from the session by Zahira Ali? Did we learn something? You can type into the chat box. What did you learn from Zahira session? So Zahira, what I learned from you, there is so much in voice modulation. There's technical element, tech, tech, technical that we are able to get our pitch, power, and pauses. Thank you very much, Zahira. So I would love to actually hand over to Michael for him to have a short sharing before handing back to me. Over to you, Michael.
We call ourselves Speak Right because we are all from a Toastmasters background. Zahira, myself, Gurmeet, Christopher, we've been trained in this area. We see many Toastmasters here, so we have to encourage you to join the nearest Toastmasters club as well. So I want to take this opportunity once again to thank all of you for joining us, and thank you, Christopher. Over to you.
Right, so this journey has not come to an end. This is just a beginning, right? So you have seen Michael sharing the first part. We have Gruby talks about his storytelling. We have Zaira Ali, the voice modulation. So moving forward, now we wanted to continue the journey to actually elevate. Now, my question here today it is, are you planning to leave your full-time career and to become a trainer? Okay, my second question here it is, do you have your clients returning back to you for an advanced level topic or a next batch program? Now, my third question here it is, do you have consistent training days in every month? Here we are recording, Michael is recording on average 10 to 15 days training in a month. Same goes with Zahira Ali and Gurmeet. It is purely because of the level of depth the session. It is very rich in content. They love the engagement between the trainer and the facilitator. Thus, clients feel so comfortable with them, and we are so privileged that we are invited back to run a training program for the same companies. It could be a next batch program, or it could be a advanced level program, or it can be a different topic altogether. So my point here is like, to all of you, the question: do you want to have the same experience to be reinvited? By the way, our training engagement with our client, it is 65% repeat clients. Now, that is the question that I would love you all to answer. So, do you want to have that sort of experience where being a sought after trainer in the industry? You can type the answer into the chat box. Now, in the moment, there is a very interesting news. There's a lot of good news. Okay, my colleague Tin Muli, she'll be sharing a screen. Now, we will love the journey with you, and we want you remember the reason why you are here. Remember. So the good news here it is now we're going to have the advanced level programs that is going to be taking place on the 22nd of February. Now the session starts at 9 a.m., 1 p.m. Now this is an advanced level program, how to convert 60% of your clients into a repeat business. Now the seats are very limited, and the price for this program it is only RM 488 ringgit or 100 US dollar. Now, if you are making a decision today within 1 hour, we're going to offer you a 20% discount. Now, come on, guys, 488 ringgit. If you sign up, the promo code is here. If you sign up within 1 hour, you'll be getting a 20% discount. Now, quick to make a decision. Just remember the reason now we wanted to elevate. Now, Malaysia, there's so many opportunities in the training industry, but we want to make sure that we are different from the rest. Now, I believe that this training program is going to turn you into a whole different level trainer. Now, the code is here. You can scan. By the way, there's so many updates that we love to share with you. You can also scan the code. Now, don't worry about the training material of today. It will be shared to you by just scanning at the link, at our WhatsApp group link. Now, by the way, Zahira Ali comes with 5 years of training experience. Michael comes with 18 years of experience. Rumi comes with 5 years experience. Now there is a secret recipe, right? So through this program, we do not want you to repeat the same mistakes where other trainers does. So by this training program, it's just a shortcut where you can eliminate all those unnecessary mistakes, get the strategy and the secret recipe to ensure that you'll be a sought after trainer in the training industry. Now, for those that not able to scan, Yashini has shared the link into the chat box. Okay, now let me share with you a personal story, right? Now, I've been working in SpeakRight for 7 years. 7 years. In fact, last week it is my 7th anniversary in SpeakRight. Now, I realized that, in SpeakRight, I'm very fortunate that because my trainer really delivers well when my clients get them to run training program. Now, as a client relationship director, the best news that you can ever hear from your client is that maybe follow up with them and we ask question like how did you find it this how did you find the session went, and they tell me, Christopher, your trainer really deliver engagement. It is all time high. It is energy level. It is very consistent throughout throughout the day of the session. And like what Michael clearly pointed out, behavior changes starts to take place after the training program. Now, what is the benefit for me as the client relationship director? It is the repeat business that I'm getting from my clients. And that makes my life easier. And I want to take this opportunity in front of, 33 people here in this session. I just want to say thank you very much to Michael, Zahira, and Gurmeet for making my sales activity extremely easy. Just imagine that 65%. Right. So it's and with those great testimonies that I received from my past client, what do? I share that experience to my other clients. Now, testimony speaks, right, louder than words. So my effort of closing deals, it is made to be very, very simple. So now here we are. Now we have, we are in this platform decision. It is very simple. Take your phone, scan at the QR code. If you feel that no, your camera is not working, the link is at the chat box. It is just only 100 ringgit US dollar investment, or if 388 ringgit one time for you to get the full benefit of how to elevate yourself into a whole different level trainer. Thank you, Xiaoki. Great session and sharing by 3 experienced trainers. Gain a lot. So, Xiaoki, please sign up for this program. Seats are very limited. Thanks, Betty. Now, if you have any question, guys, if you have any questions or you have any concerns, if you need me to clear any of your doubt, you may verbalize it, or you can also drop a message in the chat box by making your decision. This is going to be one decision that is going to be transforming the way you operate in the year 2025. So once again, it is new year, new resolutions. Some of you might be, transitioning into a full-time career, into a full-time trainer journey. This will be a good opportunity. Those who have 15 days training program in the month, congratulations. Those who have not able to have 10 to 15 days of training program in the month, this will be another round of opportunity. An opportunity where you're going to have a long-term partnership with your clients. Now, another one more story that I wanted to share with you for the benefit of our discussion today. By the way, I do have a lot of meetings, and one of the meeting that I had with one of my clients, it is the complaints that we are receiving, and these complaints are real, ladies and gentlemen. They are real complaints. Now, as I asked, what is the reason? Say, Christopher, well, the trainer engaged well, content was okay, very passable, but the only thing it is the training program, it is not deep enough. So another one question that we wanted to ask ourselves it is, are we doing justice to our clients? Because these days our clients are no longer the clients where, okay, you come and run the training programs, and I'll be returning back to my cubicle or to my office. No, that is not the case. Now the clients, they are very, very demanding. They are very discerning. They will sit into the session and they will ask you question why you do that, why do you use that examples, why do you use that intervention. Now these are the clients that we are dealing with. Now the question here again, are we ready to deal, to mesmerize these tough clients that in the market? What are the reason? Because trainer takes the easy route where they are very comfortable in running the program or the topic that they are comfortable with. So now, do we want to get ourselves to explore new topics, new level? All right, so we have 7 people sign up so far. Congratulations. All right, 7 people has just signed up. Okay, now who are the next one is going to be signing up? You have already 7 up to date. What about the rest? Now, after 1 hour, the price is going to be reverted back to RM 488 ringgit. Come on, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make this Friday to be one of the most meaningful Friday of the month. Okay, so what you learned in this segment, the session on the 22nd of February, it is going to be much more deeper. So what you see here, it is 10%. What you are about to see on the 22nd February, it is super deep. It's going to be very, very visceral. It's going to be a master class. So we have come to the end of the session. To represent my team, Yashini and Molly, Michael, Zahira, and Gurmeet, I want to say a big thank you for making this session to be very, very meaningful. And after this session, those of you still have not make up your mind, we still have time, no problem. The link is there. And if you have any question, you can always drop us an email. We will assist you all the way. And I hope that you will make a very good decision. And I would love to see you back on the 22nd of November to journey with us. So make a decision, and we are ready to convert you into a group of high quality trainers. With that said, happy weekend, blessed Friday, and God bless.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for coming.